Hey, how's it? It is Kilo here, back for another one. Okay, today we're going to be doing a pulle of divine forgiveness. Again, change God out for whatever you want. Turn me down for the 15 seconds that I do this, whatever you want to do. Here we go. The forgiving, releasing, and healing power of God works in and through me now. All judgment, resentment, criticism, and unforgiveness are now dissolved and healed. With the love and peace of God within my heart, I can forgive everyone and of everything, including myself. I now forgive all past experiences. I now forgive myself for all seeming errors, mistakes, and wrongdoings. I bless myself. I am forgiven. I am free. Thank you, God. And so it is. Amine, amine. Yo, how's it? How's it, everybody? Hey, akako. Anyway, yeah, I always intend to record these things like a week or two in advance, and then sometimes I'll do it, and then sometimes I just, energies are very powerful right now. We're about to head into eclipse season, and Mercury pre-shadow retrograde is knocking on the door, and it's crazy now because, just spirituality in general is such a hot button, like popular culture term that's thrown around. Like the depth of understanding of them is just not understood in a way that is meant for, because this is something I feel in my soul. It's more so like a 3D superficial thing to acknowledge now or say you're a part of for some reason. And I mean, it's cool. We can all be woke. We can all be divine. But there is work that is required with being that individual that you say you are. So I just like to remind everybody of that. The work will always be there, and that is work you cannot bypass. It is work you cannot try to go around. It's work you cannot avoid, because in retrospect, we are all one. We're all connected. And unless you tap into your light and your darkness, there is no way you will be able to see the light of your true essence and your true being. Just want to throw that out there. Light subjects start. But no, I say that to say about the popular culture thing, because I saw a commercial and it said something about Mercury being in retrograde, like making a joke about it. And that right there was all I needed to see to be like, oh, okay, like this is something people are just saying now just to say, not really knowing what's behind it. They just hear people saying and talking about it a lot now. But, shout out to the ones that actually are doing the work. Shout out to the ones that are truly divine and truly in touch with their spirituality. Shout out to you if you're not. But you can't fake the funk with us. So I wanted to talk about today, I wanted to go a little bit more into that book, the CPTSD, Complex PTSD from Surviving to Thriving by my guy, Pete Walker. I haven't looked up this man's picture. I meant to. Yeah, there's a couple of chapters I wanted to touch on, having to do with CPTSD, with your inner and outer critic, and things you can do when you're having internal and external emotional flashbacks, is what he calls them in the book. Specifically, my dog this week, it just made me think about, when I first got her, maybe 13, 12 years ago. I think she'll be 13 in May. I don't know. It's crazy. Her birthday's kind of close to my grandma's birthday. Yeah, it just made me think about the time I got her and my mental state when I originally got that dog, and how she acts and is towards me now is very, I'm not, needy is not a word I like to use, because we all have needs as people, as humans, as animals, as anything. We all have needs. So needy is not something I try to throw around. That's not a very good, unless you actually literally are living by that definition of being needy and have low self-esteem. But that's a whole other topic, as I will usually say. I was in such a low place when I first got her, and she was like the first real unconditional love I had ever felt for a thing or a being in my entire life. And, Kale, it means the blessed one, or if you break it down, it means the garland, or Ale, or a wreath of flowers, something along those lines in Olelo. yeah, she is the blessed one. She's the blessed one in my eyes. She did save my life. She definitely came to me in a time where I was not in a great mental headspace, emotionally, physically. It was a very dark time when I got her. Yeah, so she just reflects some of those inner wounds that I had at the time to me now, when she's an older doggy lady. She just, with the attention and the necessity of me like having my hand on her, she just needs to be touched. It's adorable. Don't get me wrong. But today specifically, she's been like next fucking level of it, and I'm just like, bruh, I need to do things. I can't just sit here with you fucking around all day. So, love you, but you gotta go do something else. She's in the other room now, pouting. Sorry, baby girl. Any fucking way. Any fucking way. Okay. So, I'm gonna do my best to keep this shorter. I know that YouTube like cut out some of my other video because it was a little bit long, which I'm like, come on, man. I've seen videos on there that's like 4 hours long, you know what I mean? But I think it's because I saved it as a podcast. Anyway, I definitely wanted to go over chapter 8 in this book. It's called Managing Emotional Flashbacks. When you're stuck in a flashback, fear, shame, and or depression can dominate your experience, is what Pete says in the book. And, it's very valid, especially if you don't know where that trigger is coming from, why you're being triggered in your anger, shame, or any of that. But it all stems from somewhere, right? And there's another book I read too that it asked you to identify your outer critics, your external critics that could be making your inner critic louder. And it had you like take a picture of them and like color their eyes in and like make horns on, I don't know, just draw over them, just to basically say no and like set that intentional boundary in your mind, subconsciously and consciously, seeing that right there. And anytime you felt your inner critic come up, it would say to refer back to the picture. And then I believe I wrote like a saying or like something, like some type of contract behind the picture saying like why I was saying no to this outer critic, when it was really my inner critic. But it was an inner critic that was built off of being surrounded by outer critics my whole life. If that made any sense, I'm gonna listen to this back and be like, the fuck am I saying? But I had a point. I'm just saying. So yeah, he does go over like 13 steps for managing your emotional flashbacks, and they're pretty like standard things, breathing, be patient and slow down. But it can be so difficult to stop yourself in that moment of emotional triggering and emotional flashbackness, but that's all a part of being present and staying conscious in your responses, not your reactions, your responses, because what you're supposed to respond, not react. Responding and reacting are two very, very different things. Reacting usually has a lot of negative connotation to it, and responding is more of, okay, I've thought about this, here's what I'm going to do next, and then acting on that. So 13 steps for managing emotional flashbacks. Number 1, say to yourself, I'm having a flashbacks. I'm having a flashback. Whoa. It says that flashbacks take you into a timeless part of the psyche that feels helpless, hopeless, and surrounded by danger as you were in childhood. The feelings and sensations you are now experiencing are past memories that cannot hurt you now. Number 2, remind yourself, I feel afraid, but I am not in danger. I am safe now, here in the present. Remember, you are now in the safety of the present, far from the danger of the past. And I feel like that was something difficult for me to learn, right? Like nurturing my inner child in that way and letting her know that I am no longer in danger when it comes to certain situations. I have the power and control to be the adult that I needed, and can be that adult now and show up as that adult and that person right now for my inner self and for my adult self and teenage self, whatever you want to say. Number 3, own your right and need to have boundaries. Remind yourself that you do not have to allow anyone to mistreat you. You are free to leave dangerous situations and protest unfair behavior. And I feel that's important because, standing up for yourself is definitely a thing. I was always someone in school who would stand up for people who were being bullied, because I got bullied a lot in school. And, I was always standing up, especially when it came to my siblings. Like, you couldn't fuck with my siblings, or I will pull up ASAP on the bike. What's up? But yeah, it's your right and your need to have boundaries. Like, say that again and look in the mirror, point to yourself. It is your right and need to have boundaries. Boundaries with people that you call family, boundaries with people that you love, boundaries with people that are your friends, coworkers, whatever it may be. I had to talk to some chick that's younger than me that I coach with. She was always trying to tell me what to do. And I had to be like, yo, like, did you like get a raise that I'm not aware of, or are we in the same position? Because coaching should be pretty much straightforward. You shouldn't really have to interact with people besides the parents and the kids. But yeah, that was something I had to set a boundary on, because people will often overstep that boundary and poke the bear, as it were. Poke the bear, see how far they can get away with pulling one over on you, or manipulating you, or doing whatever else may be crossing your boundaries, just to see if you're going to say anything. And I find in family dichotomies, that's one of the things that family does too. They'll do things just to see how far they can push your love, push your boundary, unless you stand up for yourself. And I've had to stand up to plenty of my family. Currently working on a situation now, but we won't even get into that. Number 4, speak reassuringly to the inner child. The child needs to know that you love her/him unconditionally, that he can come to you for comfort and protection when he feels lost and scared. That is important to me also, because like, I didn't really have anyone I felt I could go to when I needed protection, comfort, or when I was lost and scared, just because, again, it was more that environment of, oh, I want you to come talk to me about anything, but anything I said was often like argued, or I was told I was lying. I was made to be shamed for what I was saying, or my thoughts, ideas, or anything like that. A lot of it, they claimed they wanted to hear what I had to say and what I was thinking, but then they would just turn that on me and get mad. And I really relate that to toxic relationships, because I feel like people do that. People be people, and especially if they're not healed, they'll say you can tell them anything and then get mad at you for whatever the fuck you're telling them. Like, yeah, you may be able to get pissed like for a second, but then think about that honestly. Is it in the past? Did it just happen? Like, you gotta really unpack that shit within yourself. You can't project that on other people. Number 5 is deconstruct eternity thinking. In childhood, fear and abandonment felt endless. A safer future was unimaginable. Remember, this flashback will pass, as it has always before. Always has before. Safer future was unimaginable. It was really confusing growing up. I swear I was loved, but looking back at it, it was a constant strain of trauma. And, I feel like I used that word way too much, but that's really all I could see it as now, because feeling safe, comfortable, trustworthy, and none of those things felt imaginable, because I was made to feel that I was none of those things. So, again, if you're parents and you're projecting that on your kids, and you make them feel not trustworthy, you make them feel unworthy or anything like that, they will end up thinking that about themselves, because it's what they constantly hear and what they're constantly around. And I just hope that some of these things that I'm saying on here end up helping somebody with stuff like that, because it's not a fun place to be in, and it's not a place anyone should be in anyway, because you are worthy for real. Number 6, remind yourself that you are in an adult body with allies, skills, and resources to protect that you never had as a child. Feeling small and fragile is a sign of a flashback. Again, this sentence makes me feel or think about the movie Matilda. especially when the dad's like, I'm big, you're small, I'm smart, you're dumb. He went back and forth about the things she was and wasn't and what he was to her. And, I really liked the camera angles on that because they would like zoom up at him and he would be like looking down on her and then they would look back down at her. And it was just like a very interesting inner child moment right in that whole scene. I really appreciated the videography in that scene. Number 7 is ease back into your body. It says fear launches you into heady, worrying, or numbing and spacing out. And it says there's like a sub thing. It says gently ask your body to relax. Feel each of your major muscle groups and softly encourage them to relax. Tighten muscles send false danger signals to your brain. B. Breathe deeply and slowly. Holding your breath also signals danger. C. Slow down. Rushing presses your brain's flight response button. D. Find a safe place. To unwind and soothe yourself, wrap yourself in a blanket, hold a pillow or a stuffed animal, lie down on your bed or in a closet or in a bath, take a nap. E. Feel the fear in your body without reacting to it. Fear is just an energy in your body. It cannot hurt you if you do not run from it. This is why for my yogis out there, Shavasana, that's one of my favorite poses. It really helps ground you at the end, especially at the end of your practice. If you're just laying there and you can just feel the ground underneath your entire body, and it's a special pose. It really is. I was doing a grounding meditation a couple weeks ago. It was like 2 or 3 of them, but I was bawling my eyes out by the end of them. I guess I really needed that grounding to come back down sometimes. Resist the inner critic's drasticizing and catastrophizing. A. Use thought stopping. Halt the critic's endless exaggerations of danger and its constant planning to control the uncontrollable. Refuse to shame, hate, or abandon yourself. Channel the anger of self-attack into saying no to your critic's unfair self-criticism. B. Use thought substitution and thought correction to replace negative thinking with a memorized list of your qualities and accomplishments. So that's also very important too. Affirmations are a thing. Subliminal affirmations are even better to me, in my opinion, just because, they really, really get embedded in your subconscious. And that's what you're really working against when it comes to your healing, right? Because you can heal on the outside all you want, but the inner work, the deep, all the realms of being work, that shit will stick with you even if the tiniest fragment is left in any of your astral planes. It will stick with you. 555 on the clock as I'm saying that, you dig? And also going back to number 7, ease back into your body. I've been seeing a lot of posts about how disassociating was is a child's way of just like coping with the trauma and the pain they feel in that moment of that situation right then and there. I didn't know that, but I was constantly disassociating from my environment and where I was and who I was around, just because, again, that shit was mad confusing. It was a mad confusing childhood, to say the least. Number 9, and I feel the most important one, okay? Allow yourself to grieve. You gotta feel it to heal it, okay? If it don't apply, let it fly like a rubber band, okay? You know what I'm saying? It says flashbacks are opportunities to release old, unexpressed feelings of fear, hurt, and abandonment. Validate and soothe your child's past experience of helplessness and hopelessness. Healthy grieving can turn your tears into self-compassion and your anger into self-protection. Okay, turn your tears into self-compassion and your anger into self-protection. So who says anger is all bad? You know what I mean? You have a right to get angry. You absolutely have a right to feel and expand on every human emotion you feel. Doesn't matter right or wrong. If it's right for you in that moment, it's right on time. Okay? I mean it. It's Sunday, but I don't mean to preach. So grieving, I feel like, is a very overlooked thing when it comes to healing trauma and healing parts of yourself that you used to identify with. You got to grieve for that old person that you used to be, and you got to be thankful for the lessons they may have taught you in that time. but also you have to grieve for the things you went through while you were living as that individual. It may be in a past life or whenever, but you know, this is something else I'll get into, but grieving resolves flashbacks. Okay. Grieving can resolve flashbacks because, just like if anyone passes away, you grieve for that person. I'm not saying you get over it, but like you grieve for that person at such a level that like, all that negative energy, the crying, the tears, the hatred you feel, or whatever angrier side of emotions you feel that arise comes up. Whenever you release them, that's when the true magic happens. That's when your light shines just a little bit more, because you truly do have to feel it to heal it. And if you don't feel it, where do you think that's going to go? It's going to be imagine a vortex, an internal vortex inside of yourself, bringing that energy just back into you. I just keep picturing the recycling logo for whatever reason. You know what I mean? Reduce, reuse, recycle. Okay, but don't recycle that negative shit. We're letting that go. Grieve it. Get gone. Okay? It says combine crying, tears of grief, and tears of relief. Tears of relief came from being able to take in empathy. Tears of grief were the feelings of her abject childhood pain being released. Okay? There are times where I just feel like crying, and I have no idea why, but I know that in that moment it's supposed to be. So I just start crying. Doesn't matter where I'm at. Mostly it's when I'm driving. They say that's like I think it's left brain. They say driving is like a very left brain activity. So you're in like a moment of stasis or in tune with your spirituality at that time. Okay, number 10, cultivate safe relationships and seek support. It says take time alone when you need it, but do not let shame isolate you. Feeling shame does not mean you are shameful. Educate your intimates about flashbacks and ask them to help you talk and feel your way through them. Now, this one is not for everybody, okay? Because, now I would probably have you do this with like a closer friend that that isn't going to judge you or is maybe on the same level when you're talking spiritual shit, okay? I've had people look at me with the absolute screwiest face when I bring up some spiritual shit, and I'm just like, word, I know I can't talk about this with you then. Next. And mostly, I'm talking to God, honestly. What the fuck? I don't know what y'all doing, but we're not telling too many people shit when they're not gonna 3D understand or 3D relate, and I'm not looking to 3D relate with anybody, to be honest. If you do happen to cultivate relationships and find your soul family who's on the same frequency as you and same level as you when it comes to consciousness and things you seek and your morals and values, yes, I'd say please feel free to speak to them about it. Even seek a mentor. I know my mentor will come to me at one point, but I feel at this point I'm meant to be the mentor for whatever reason. Number 11, learn to identify the types of triggers that lead to flashbacks. Avoid unsafe people, places, activities, and triggering mental processes. Practice preventative maintenance with these steps when triggering situations are unavoidable. So, yeah, basically he's telling you to go back to refer to steps 1, 3, just wanna be with you. My bad, that just reminded me of that song. But yeah. Then I start back at 1. Yeah, so refer back to the first 10 steps and also, the next 2 as well. But yeah, just know what is going to trigger you and be confident and loud and vocal when it comes to being triggered, like in the ways you are, because that's the only way people are going to realize, hey, don't fuck with me. This is something that's going to trigger me. Depends on who you're talking to, right? Like if it's someone you love and care about, maybe just be like, hey, this is kind of triggering me, and then maybe go over it later after you're out of the flashback. But if it's people that are like fucking with you and they're saying some crazy shit and they may only see their perspective, family, it's like, but yeah, just dude, you don't have to engage in those conversations. You don't have to engage in the conversations and the subjects you know that they are only going to see their way from. Number 12, figure out what you are flashing back to. Flashbacks are opportunities to discover, validate, and heal your wounds from past abuse and abandonment. They also point to your still unmet developmental needs and can provide you with motivation to get them met. Abuse and abandonment. Pooh, that's a phrase. That's again, it reminds me of my dog, you know what I mean? Like, I had a fear of abandonment, you know, because literally every last person in my family walked out on me, walked away. There's just a lot of abandonment going on there from like my formative years, so on. You know, it was a lot of mistrust when it came to things. But again, I was made to believe I was untrustworthy, that I was a piece of shit, pretty much. So yeah, just remember and figure out what you're flashing back to. Figure out what it could be stemming from. I think it's also interesting because this book delves into like getting mad in the car and like what that could actually stem back to. He talks about how this lady brings like a small hose with her and a phone book, and anytime she gets triggered on the road to yell at someone, she pulls over and starts beating the shit out of the phone book. I don't think I could find a phone book in this day and age, but I'd be down to beat something up with a hose, you know, not a person or anything like that. Just, another big ass book. Number 13, be patient with the slow recovery process. It takes time in the present to become de-adrenalized and considerable time in the future to gradually decrease the intensity, duration, and frequency of flashbacks. Real recovery is a gradually progressive process, often 2 steps forward, 1 step back, not an attained salvation fantasy. Don't beat yourself up for having a flashback. And this is where I feel empathy strongly comes in, because, if you can't have and show empathy to yourself, you definitely are not going to be able to show that to the outer world. So, just be kind to yourself when you feel maybe you've reverted back to old things, old ways. Sometimes I catch myself slipping, not doing my routines, or finding excuses as to why I'm not going to do something, or maybe watching more TV than I should, and just avoiding the work. But because the work can get exhausting, but you have to remember why you're on the mission. Is it for you, or are you doing it for somebody else? Because if it's not for you, you're not going to get very far. Just throwing that out there. Okay, so he goes into the definition of triggers and emotional flashbacks. It says a trigger is an external or internal stimulus that activates us into an emotional flashback. This often occurs on a subliminal level outside the boundaries of normal consciousness. Recognizing what triggers us can therefore be difficult. Nonetheless, becoming increasingly mindful of our triggers is crucial because it sometimes allows us to avoid flashbacks inducing people, situations, and behaviors. External triggers are people, places, things, events, facial expressions, styles of communication, etc. that remind us of our original trauma in a way that flashes us back into the painful feelings of those times. Damn! I also think it's interesting because he goes into until I recognize my performance anxiety as a flashback to the danger of talking at my family dinner time. This recognition allowed me to see that I was unconsciously terrified that my parents were going to show up and scoff at me in public. At first, my critic, labeled this as a preposterous idea, but when I started to imagine and practice aggressively defending myself against them on the drive to my teaching engagement, I soon experienced an enormous reduction in my anxiety. So I find that interesting just because, like, when it comes to me performing my music or making music or anything creative like that, it used to be a thing where I would go out in public and my biological mom would be like, basically like, dance, monkey, dance, like make me sing in front of people, do all this shit. But when I was made to be silent, I was made to not be expressive and things like that. So I always found that interesting that I was made to be silent at home, but when I went out into public, she would always try to make me sing or dance for her friends or for people, stuff like that. It really kind of took away the joy of performing and the things I actually enjoyed doing. and I didn't realize what a deep-seated dent, I guess, that left inside of my subconscious when I eventually started performing again, and when I eventually started to put my music out again, because, you know, I had released a freestyle a million years ago, and she heard it, and it was not it was not the best. I mean, it was a dope freestyle, but she was not happy about what was in it. She sent it to me and was like, thanks for the mention or something like that. And then, you know, my sister had told me before that she kept all of my social media up on tabs and would like refresh the shit just to see what I was releasing. But anytime I would make music or do anything creative, she would tell me that's not realistic. It's not something I could do with my life. And I don't know if she ever explicitly said that that's not something I was good at, but definitely made me feel that way, if you catch my drift. Yeah, it wasn't a good feeling, you know, every time I'd bring something creative to them and be like, oh, okay, and you're going to be a lawyer, so why does it matter? It's like, but am I though? Like, I just feel like I'm a really creative being, okay? You know what I mean? I'll just be creating and shit. But yeah, anyway, I thought that was interesting. He went into that. But I guess that would be like an emotional flashback in some way. All of the above. And like then he goes into talking about like, you know, every kid probably has gotten a look or the look from their parents in public, like, what are you doing? You're embarrassing me right now. Like, bitch, you better stop that. Or like, I'm gonna whoop your ass type shit is like the look. And he says in most cases is the facial expression that typically accompanies contempt. Contempt is a powerful, punishing visage backed up by an emotional force field of intimidation and disgust. A raised voice can be added intermittently to the look to amp up its power. Whoa, that was a hard sentence to read. Yeah, and it also says when a parent gives the look to a child, she is telling him that he is not only in serious jeopardy, but that he is also a sorry excuse for a human being. Over time, the look can make the recipient feel terrified and repugnant as it drives him into emotional flashback of fear and shame. When the look is used to control an older child, it commonly flashes her back to an earlier pre-memory time when the look was empowered by traumatizing punishment. The look rarely terrifies a child into obedience unless it has previously been paired with hitting or other dire consequences. Yeah, I would say so, you know. I knew that if I went out and I did something stupid and one of my parents glared at me, it was time to shut the fuck up and sit on my hands. They used to make us sit on our hands sometimes. For what reason, I'm not even sure. I think they should have sat on their hands, you know what I mean? Not knowing how to keep their hands to themselves. Shit. You know, I'm sure every kid remembers getting that look. Like, I remember one time, I don't even know why I remember this, but we were in Kohl's and I don't remember why I was screaming and crying, but I was. And I definitely got the ass whooping of my life when I got home because they were not happy that I was doing that. I was like crying on the floor. I had the cart and I was getting dragged along in the store on the bottom of the cart, like laying on the ground holding the wheel type shit. But yeah, she was not happy about that. I definitely remember that. With enough pairings of the look with physical punishment or extreme abandonment, the parent can eventually delete the smack and get the same results with just the look. With enough repetitions in early childhood, this pairing can last a lifetime so that the parent can control the child forever with the look. The look then is a powerful trigger for making adult survivors flash back to the fear and humiliation of their childhood. I think that's wild. I feel like it's wild to make your child feel so humiliated and so ashamed of who they actually are that they actually continue to cover that. And don't get, like, I'm guilty of that as well. I'm feeling so ashamed of who I actually am for being called weird, a loser, a nerd, whatever I got called when I was younger. Yeah, it's just a wild concept to me to make someone feel so ashamed to be who they actually are. It says, unfortunately, the look can continue to work even after the parent dies. There are at least two reasons for this. First, we internalize our parents in a way that they can subliminally appear in our imaginations and give us the look whenever we are less than perfect. This includes imperfections in thought, feeling, or action. Sadly, I often see this subliminal look mimicked on the faces of my flashback clients as they scowl contemptuously at themselves. And second, when anyone else looks at us disapprovingly, we can generalize that they are as dangerous as our parents. And clear, sure signs of being in a flashback is that you feel small, helpless, and hopeless. And in intense flashbacks, this magnifies into feeling so ashamed that we are loath to go out or show our face anywhere. Feeling fragile, on edge, delicate, and easily crushable is another aspect of this, and that goes into isolating yourself. And there's a difference between divinely guided isolation and an inner outer critic isolation that makes us feel ashamed to go in public for fear of being ashamed of who we actually are and going out and not showing the world that, because it's safer inside. It's safer away from people who can judge us or hurt us or not accept us for who we are.